Joining us at the table now, Tom Daschle, who was the Senate Majority Leader from 2001 to 2003, Democrat from South Dakota. And Mr. Daschle, when you look at Capitol Hill these days, what do you see?
Well, I see a lot of turmoil, Paul. I think that the American people feel basically we're on the wrong track. They're not comfortable with Iraq. They're not comfortable with all the scandals that you're reporting again this morning. They don't like the divisiveness, the bitterness that they see in Washington, and so there's a good deal of turmoil, and I think that's reflected in a lot of the competitive races you see around the country.
And the numbers, the rating numbers for Congress, not very good. One poll had them at 16%. Now, that's a combined rating, both parties. So next question is, why should Democrats be given control of Capitol Hill?
Well, I think that any time we're on the wrong track, the American people have the opportunity to take the steering wheel and to give it a crank and give it some new direction. And I think that's basically what they're going to do. The Republicans have been in control of the House, the Senate, and the White House, and I think the feeling is perhaps now the Democrats ought to be given a chance to see if we can move this country in a different direction, maybe a cleaner, more efficient, and responsive government, less infighting, dealing with Iraq, dealing with the economy, dealing with issues that people care about, like health and education in particular.
You're a fellow now at the Center for American Progress, which you point out is not just a think tank, but an action tank. If Democrats were in charge on the Hill, be specific. What would the first couple of months need to look like? What do they need to do, in your view?
Well, I think the most important thing they need to do is to help restore the confidence that has been lost about Congress and about governance. As you know, the polling data suggests that they may be at an all-time low with regard to the credibility of the standing among the American people. So they need to show that they can govern. They need to try to find ways to move good legislation. I think what's on the minds of a lot of people is our precipitous fall from standing and credibility internationally. They need to begin to send clear messages about their intentions there. I think we have to address health care. We have to address issues that people are concerned about here at home. But we need to start legislating in a very real and productive way, and that has to be done almost immediately.
Tom Daschle will be our guest for 40 minutes, and here are the phone numbers. If you support President Bush, call 202-737-0001. If you support Democrats, it's 737-0002. And if you support others, 202-628-0205. Again, Mr. Daschle, Democrat from South Dakota, was Majority Leader in the Senate from 2001 to 2003. Be specific, if you can, regarding Iraq. What would your plan be for dealing with that situation?
Well, I've endorsed a plan that we at the Center have been working on for some time, Paul. It would be what we call strategic redeployment. That is, putting more troops where we have to put them, and that is in Afghanistan, so that we can ensure that the progress we've made there will continue and deal with the serious problems we have in the southern region in particular, and the tremendous difficulties we've had with poppy production there. So I would start with that. I think that the second piece of it is to bring the National Guard troops home over a period of time and to gradually withdraw our troops and put the greater focus on regional support for the efforts politically in the country and recognize that our presence there militarily is probably having as much of a negative effect as it is a positive effect today.
What do you make of that plan put out by Senator Biden to split Iraq into 3 parts? Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I think there's some value to ensuring that each one of the 3 major groups in Iraq have some degree of confidence that they'll have the autonomy and they'll have the ability to govern, at least in their parts of the country. I think that while the Biden plan has merit, I think you have to be very concerned about the degree to which that would split apart the country very quickly. So I think there has to be some degree of federalism in addition to some unity of purpose with regard to the whole country.
First call for Tom Daschle is from Baltimore. Welcome to the program.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, Tom, this is Neil Garland. We met in Los Angeles about 10 years ago.
Hey, Neil.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
I want to commend you, and I think it's very exciting for the Democratic Party now to look and see what we need to do after this next election to guarantee that our nation's secure. And your suggestion about Afghanistan is right on the money. As you know, I lived in Afghanistan for about 6 months, about 20 years ago, when I did the exhibits at the U.S. Botanic Gardens. And the poppy production is a very important issue right now, and we may even want to look at maybe working with the pharmaceutical companies to buy up the poppy, because just stopping it politically, I don't think we're going to be able to do it. So it may be a suggestion.
Well, thank you, Neil. I haven't really come to any final decision as to how we deal effectively with the poppy issue, but it's becoming a bigger and bigger problem. Economically, it's a source of tremendous revenue for the country, but the problem is, of course, that it, as the source of such revenue, is also the source of an incredible flow of drugs to the United States and other parts of the world. So we've got to find alternative economies, alternative products, alternative production in agriculture, and that may take some sort of a purchase program. Nonetheless, we can't ignore it. It's getting worse, not better, and the sooner we deal with it, I think the more effective we can be in the longer term with regard to political stabilization.
Rendell, North Carolina, you're on the air.
Yes, Mr. Daschle. The Democrats always promise, and I'm a Democrat. But also, I don't see anything about, I don't see the solutions. I see the things thrown out there about, I hear, well, we need to do this, we need to do that. But I'm not hearing them tell about how they're going to do it. And also, I see the economy as one of your problems. Around where I live, I've never seen so many houses being bought, so many cars being bought because of your interest rates. And I wish I could have been that lucky, because I'm a senior citizen, that when I lived, I had to pay 13% interest even though I had good credit. So I'd like to see some of the senior citizens address. I'd like to see some more of this stuff and the answer to it. Well, see, I'm seeing all these promises. We're going to change this, we're going to change that. But I'm not hearing anybody say how they're going to do it.
Caller, let me jump in, and Senator, let me lay out what Nancy Pelosi had to say to U.S. News and World Report about her early agenda if she becomes a speaker. They're calling it a new direction for America, or 6406. They're talking within days, 100 hours, I think, was the time frame. Some of the topics: increasing the minimum wage, negotiating lower prices for Medicare prescription drugs, implementing all the 9/11 Commission recommendations, ending tax breaks for oil companies, increasing federal funding for human embryonic stem cell research. The hardest part, says Pelosi, is limiting the priorities. You agree with those priorities?
I do. I think that Nancy has and the caucus have really put in place some of the more important priorities for which there is broad agreement within the Democratic caucus. I doubt very much that you get more than nominal opposition within the caucus to any of those issues. They've been ones we've been defending and pushing for a long period of time without votes, and so I think it's a terrific agenda to start.
But how do you get that done when you have a Republican president who could veto any bill, and then you've got to muster the 2/3? Back to that caller's question, how do you get it done?
Well, that is a good question. All the House can do is to legislate within its body, and then, of course, it has to move to the Senate. If we're able to take back the Senate as well, my guess is that many of the issues that Nancy has addressed, that Speaker Pelosi has addressed, or future Speaker Pelosi, hopefully, has addressed, you would see the Senate address as well. Then the question comes, well, how do we agree with how do we find some agreement with and common ground with the White House? My hope is that if the Democratic majority in the House and in the Senate can push a unified agenda, they'll put pressure on the White House to work with us to find the common ground necessary to get it enacted.
Caller now from Bridgeport, Connecticut, for Tom Daschle. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Senator Daschle, no disrespect, but how much longer do you think you can sucker the people? You, Nancy Pelosi, Barbara Boxer, all of you guys, and I'm an independent. You're no better than Dick Cheney, George Bush, Hassler, any of them, or any of those pedophiles anyway. Well, not the youth, but you're talking about stopping poppy seeds and all this stuff. How are you going to stop? You can't even stop cocaine from coming to Colombia and it's on this side of the hemisphere. You can't stop weed from coming from Canada. You can't stop Bush from trying to spread his providence all over the world. Why do you sit here and tell everybody, you know that all you economists got to go? Republican and Democratic, you have to go. You know, you got a smirk on your face because you're just as dirty as any of them. You guys are no good. Step down. Give leadership to somebody who's going to do something for the people.
Some strong language there,
all right.
Senator.
Do you really think? No,